Hello, everybody, and thanks for tuning in. My name is Emma Johansen, and I'm Collections Assistant at the Filson Historical Society in Louisville, Kentucky. And happy American Archives Month. For Archives Month, KDLA has reached out to us asking us to do a short little presentation on how to navigate our website, search through our databases, and explore some of the digital collections we have on Omeka, and a little more information on me. I just graduated from the University of Louisville back in May with my bachelor's degree in history and a minor in LGBTQ studies. And I've been with the Filson since January 2020, where I started off as an intern and then was promoted to collections assistant in May of this year. I'm very happy to be with the Filson. We have a lovely archive and a lovely staff, and I get to welcome in new researchers every single day. And we formally reopened to the public on September 1st, so you can walk in, do research with us, or you can reserve an appointment at research@filsonhistorical.org. And if you have any questions, my Twitter is @EMRoseJohansen on Twitter. And you can also follow the Filson Historical Society on Twitter @FilsonHistory, on Instagram and Facebook with the same name. Without further ado, I hope you enjoy our presentation. Thanks again for tuning in, and happy American Archives Month. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do is go to filsonhistorical.org. That is FILSON historical.org. And through this top bar, you can find a lot of really good information about us, including our history and our mission as an institution, which I'll kind of gloss over later. Collections, which this is going to be the bulk of our presentation today. More information about our events, education, the publications we're involved with, the ways that you can get involved, including becoming a member or becoming a volunteer or donating some of your treasures and artifacts, and ways that you can visit us, schedule a tour, exhibits we have right now, and ways that you can rent our facility for a wedding, for a corporate event, or anything of the like. You can also click on here for our Facebook, our Instagram, our YouTube, and our Twitter page. So just to go over quickly, some of the events that we have because of the COVID-19 pandemic are still over Zoom, but in the future we will be going back to in-person events, which can include book talks, including this featured event that's coming up soon on December 5th about Gideon Shryock, Kentucky's first architect. And a lot of the events that we do have are, related to books based off of our collections or have used our collections as the bulk of their research. And then there are also, if you have missed a Zoom call that you were really interested in, we also do talks about our exhibits, online and our physical exhibits. And if you are ever curious, you can find recordings of those on our YouTube channel or event audio recordings right here. You can also register for a Filson event through this site here. Speaking of, getting involved with the Filson, learning more about our collections, education. This tab can tell you more about research fellowships, historical resources on racial inequality in Louisville, and born from the COVID-19 pandemic, we also have this Bringing History Home page, which has a lot of digital goodies that you can have for all ages, and have the whole family interested in history and what we have here at the Filson. And speaking of what we have at the Filson, our history as an institution is old as our archives and our materials itself. We were founded in 1884 by 10 men, primarily Louisvillians, as the Filson Club. And Filson is actually named after John Filson, accredited as Kentucky's first historian, and wrote about the discovery, settlement, and present state of Kentucky. Notice how there's no Y there. Kentucky didn't have an but it didn't have a Y but an E until later on in its history. And I mean, it was published in 1784. And so from this group of amateur historians and people just interested in history, the Filson Club was born. And we have been known as the Filson Club all the way up until we changed our name in the 1990s to the Filson Historical Society. And we're still trying to break through from that image that we are a private, exclusive club when we are open to the public. You know, anybody can come in through our doors and anybody can do research. We have people from all walks of life that come in and do research with us, and we're very thankful for that. And, you know, the Filson Club doesn't really describe us as an institution anymore. We are a privately supported historical society, but that doesn't mean that we are only open to private people or events or other things of that nature. We are for the public in every sense of the word. And so going over these histories of us as an institution, we can finally get to kind of the main course, the collections that we have. And here you will find the, like, all the different databases that we have, ways that you can order reproductions or ask us reference questions, which we'll go into later. But right here at this home page of our collections department, you will find our hours, research fees for non-members, if you're a student or if you are needing some remote reference questions, which we do answer all the time through email or phone. Mostly, we did that even before the pandemic, but during, you know, quarantine, and we still had people that, you know, wanted to use our collections and write about, you know, what we have. So remote reference became a huge like part of our lives as we were working from home as well as our researchers. So if you're looking for more clarification on how to do research with us, it is right on this page, right from this sidebar from researching at the Filson to how to research. And right here by this big old button, you can click and schedule a research appointment with us. And you can also read more about how to handle our materials at the Filson, researching from home, and photocopies, and if you can take pictures of our materials, and how to cite our materials. The most important thing to review before coming for a research appointment is how to handle materials. And this doesn't just go for our archive and our materials, but whenever you go to an archive or any kind of historical repository, you know, a lot of our materials are, you know, centuries old. You know, every day I touch materials that are 1804, 1805, if not older. And, you know, we as archivists take a lot of care in how we handle our collections, whether they be photographs or manuscripts or anything of the like. We also have large prints, we have portraits and museum objects, and all of these different mediums that we are in charge of taking care of require their own kind of special care and handling. And, you know, our job as archivists aren't just to provide these collections to researchers of today, but to preserve them for researchers in many, many years to come. And so, you know, we treat our items that are left in our care with respect, and we expect people coming in to do research with us, we expect that same respect from them. Just as kind of a low rundown, there's always going to be an archivist in the room with you if you are handling our special collections that will kind of show you the ropes on how to handle letters, rare books, photographs. But as a general rule, not just for us, but for archives in general, photographs, we ask that you wear gloves. This prevents the oils from getting into the photograph. Even me growing up with, you know, just normal photographs taken with a regular camera, I was always taught, you know, grab from the sides of the photo so your fingerprints don't get on it. This is kind of the same principle, whether you're dealing with tintypes from like the 1860s or just regular photos that were taken like 10 years ago that are printed out. You know, we want to take care of the material as best as we can. And so with photographs, we ask that you use gloves, handle them one at a time, keep them in their original order. And with manuscripts, like let's say manuscripts is kind of a umbrella term for things that are like letters, correspondence, diaries, journal entries, just a collection of papers. And that's the bulk of what we have at the Filson, our manuscript collections. And with manuscripts, we ask that you not use gloves usually, which is kind of a common misconception with archives. We don't always wear gloves. It's really only for photographs. When you do try and use gloves with manuscripts, it's actually harder to pick the pages up, and actually makes it more likely to rip or tear because you don't have as much of a grip on the letter. But let's say, like with a letter, we ask that you lay the paper always flat on the table. If you want to take a picture, we ask that you stand up and do it that way instead of like holding it like close to your face or close to your phone to take a picture. Speaking of pictures, you can take as many digital photographs as you like. If you'd like a photocopy, we do provide photocopies. Sometimes we do charge depending on if it's like, let's say it's a book that you'd like a photocopy of and it's 30 pages. That's going to take a lot of paper and ink on our part, so there is kind of a 25 cents per page, but it does depend on the order, and we are pretty flexible with these rules. We used to charge for digital photography, but you know, because these rules are set in place, it's not like a set in stone, like we're never flexible. Like, no, we review these rules and these expectations for researchers all the time, and you know, we as an institution change, our rules and guidelines change. But pretty much every archive across the board isn't going to allow bound notebooks, isn't going to allow like pens in the archive or anything like that. Anything that could harm the material, just isn't allowed in the archive room. So no food or drink, or pen and ink. That's usually the one that I catch all the time, that people accidentally bring a pen in and I'm like, oh no, we actually don't allow pens. Because sometimes I would mess up and I would be like, oh, I was about to write on, this letter with a pen thinking that it was a pencil, and people, make mistakes all the time. And so, these policies of, only bringing in laptops and using loose leaf paper is to not just remind ourselves as archivists or and like ourselves as researchers, but slip ups do happen, and these rules are kept in place so that way we can just better handle the materials that are left to be in our care. And down here you can learn more information about how to cite materials from the Filson. If you're writing for a historical publication or a paper or anything like that, and you need like an academic citation, people usually use Chicago style, but depending on what your project is or what you're researching, you can bring it up with the archivist or somebody at the reference desk, and they'd be happy to get into specifics. But it's usually like courtesy to the Filson Historical Society, including the call number or the ID number. And again, if you ask like the person that's helping you do your research, they're more than happy to discuss the specifics with you. And with that, I think it's time to go into the main databases that we have. So this first one is the Manuscript Database, and this is what all of us use on the daily. Most of our collections are manuscripts, and let's say that so later on in this presentation, I'm going to introduce you to the Bullitt Sanders papers that are recently digitized, and let's just say Bullitt. Let's just say Bullitt as a last name. There's also Bullitt County, but the way that we search, we usually use maybe like 1 or 2 keywords, and it will search via subject. So you can find Bullitt and Bullitt. You can find Bullitt Harris, Burwell Bullitt, so it's last name first, John Bullitt, and let's say if we wanted to research John Bullitt, who's kind of a major figure in the Bullitt Sanders papers and digital collection, let's click on him for a second. Let's click on him and see what collection he's part of. So he's part of the Bullitt Family Papers Oxmoor collection. And let's see what kind of this catalog card says about him. So John was the son of Benjamin Bullitt and his second wife, Sarah. And there's some more biographical information on him. And there's also, if you see these in parentheses, these are folders that you can find this information. So let's say you wanted to research that among his papers was a copy of a bill of sale for an enslaved person to his half-brother Cuthbert Bullitt. So let's say you wanted to find this exact bill, and so you'd go to folder 136 in this little parentheses, and with folder 136, you would find up here, this is the magic number. This call number, this is your lifeblood. So this is manuscript AB937C, and then if you're looking for that bill of sale, it would be in folder 136 right here. So when you come in to do research, or if you're asking a remote reference question in your email or on your researcher sheet that we would provide you, this is the number you write down, MSS AB937C 136, and that tells us what you want pulled and what you want to look at. It's very, like, this is a number that is unique to this material, and so it lets us know where it is and how we can pull it for you. And it also is great for your own records, so that way you don't go over the same folder over and over again and don't look at things twice, because, you know, even as a history student and as an intern, you know, pacing is the hardest part about going to the archives. Like, that is, you know, figuring out like how long it's going to take you to go through this amount of folders or search through these amount of photographs. Historical research is very time consuming, and so, you know, once you kind of create notes on what you've seen already, you know, you don't reinvent the wheel and you figure out like, okay, I've already looked through these papers, time to go to somewhere else. Another database that you will use is our rare book and library collection. So let's say I wanted to find a book. There was Thomas Walker Bullitt. He actually wrote a book called My Life at Oxmoor. So keeping in with the Bullitt theme and what, you know, I just, for example, have been researching for a couple months with the Bullitt family papers. So let's go back into, let's just type in Oxmoor as a subject keyword. So we have a ton of books on Oxmoor, not just by Thomas Walker Bullitt. We have, you know, Oxmoor Preservation and Conservation Easement. We also have, you know, Thomas W. Bullitt's manuscripts. My Life at Oxmoor, here we go. That's the book that I was talking about. And so, you know, it's in our rare book collection, and this call number, that's the other magic number that you're wanting. You're wanting RB929.2B937, you know, and I mean, if you told me as when I was a freshman history major that I was gonna, you know, love numbers this much, I would not have believed you. But really, it's like, this is the magic number, and this again is what you're going to want to put on in your email if you're doing a remote reference with us, or if you have a researcher research sheet. This is that number you'd want to put on there, so that way we know what specifically you're wanting, and also how we can pull it, and again also for your records to keep track of what you've already looked at. Another important thing is finding aids. This, if you're wanting to look at a broader collection, finding aids are really the cream of the crop. You know, finding aid, you know, this isn't just for our institution. Like, pretty much every archive, you know, after a collection is finished cataloging and processing and accessioning, you know, there's going to be a finding aid to help the researcher find what they're looking for in, you know, these collections. Because let's stick with the Bullitt family papers still, because the Bullitt family papers are absolutely huge. It's one of our largest collections, and so, you know, trying to narrow down, again, it's about pacing, like trying to narrow down which folders you want to look at, and, you know, how much time you're going to spend on a folder. It's a challenge to try and get the hang of it. And so let's go back into Bullitt family papers Oxmoor collection. That was where we found that John Bullitt subject header earlier in the manuscript collection. And so here you can see some basic information about the collection, including the creator, which is the Bullitt family, the title of the collection, the size of the collection, 164 cubic feet. like I was saying, that's massive. And then this locator number, which again, it's kind of the broader number for the collection, but for specific folders, there would usually be a number right after, like that folder we were talking about, folder 136, excuse me, would be right after B937C. And so back here, there would be a scope and content note, a list of folders, which you can see. You can scroll like this you can scroll forever. But you know, you can also hit this handy download button right here, and it will have this 118 page finding aid. You know, I've encountered finding aids that are, you know, 5 pages, and then there's finding aids like these that are 118 pages. And here you'll find the same information, a scope and content note, and then list of folders. And this list of materials will change depending on the collection. You know, with photograph collections, which we recently put those finding aids online, it will be categorized mostly on an item level, about a basic description about the specific photograph. But with here, since the collection is so massive, we have cataloged it just based on folder. So in box 1, there would be, you know, folder 1, 2, 3, sometimes 3A. This A is usually for like added collections. Folder 4, 5, and then, you know, all the way up until box 2, images and museum artifacts. So with my position as collections assistant, I also work with Heather Potter, who is the director of the photograph and prints department. And this Past Perfect Online, this is not every photograph that we have. That's a common misconception, that every photograph we have or every you know, item that we have is digitized. That is in no way the case. We have like 10 levels full of archival things, and it would be impossible to digitize everything. But with photographs, we take specific care in making sure that the collections we do digitize, like let's say the Ivy Watkins Cousins negative collection, are useful to the researcher. And like, even if they aren't in Louisville or can't like make an appointment with us in person, that they can still access these really amazing collections. So the Ivy Watkins collection is actually really special. We've been working on this for 3 years, and, you know, 1,500 negatives of Louisville before urban renewal. Like, most of these negatives were taken in June 1959, and so it is the entire city before the interstate moved in. So all of these negatives are very rare, and we just knew when we acquired the collection that this needs to go online, you know, and we kind of set it as a priority collection. And so here you can find the catalog number. Again, that's another magic number. You can find the title, Southeastern View of Downtown Louisville, the collection. This is a photograph negative and a short description of, you know, any buildings that the cataloger could recognize, like that this was taken from the Hayburn building, and so it is of South 4th Street and West Broadway, and there's also the east wing of the Louisville Free Public Library is in frame. So, you know, and a lot of these image reproductions, if you'd like to use them for presentations or for articles and the like, we really ask that you contact images@filsonhistorical.org, and we can fulfill a reproduction order for you. We use Past Perfect for all of our photograph and object collections as well, but not all of it is going to be available on Past Perfect Online. To go through our Past Perfect catalog in full, you would have to go with an in-person research appointment with us. So that's the digital collections. Now this is spearheaded by Danielle Spalenka and Abby Glogauer, who is head of our Jewish collections. And here you can find, again, search images with Past Perfect Online, and coming soon, you can search museum objects with Past Perfect Online as well. Again, we're expanding, you know, a lot of what we use with Past Perfect and what we're, you know, digitizing and putting online. But firstly, let's go to the Jewish Community Newspaper Digital Archive, which is spearheaded by Abby Glogauer, again, head of our Jewish collections. And here you can find the digitization of the community newspaper. which began in 1973, and we have digitized up until the late 90s, and so you can click on here. There's also a handy user's guide. If you'd like to peruse that. Hello. I'm basically doing the video version of this right now. And so with the search the collection, let's say you wanted to find a name. Let's look up the name John, just as a regular name, and see if there's a guy that was named John. And oh, look, there's many guys that are named John in the community newspaper, and so you can actually see that there were 24 instances of some guy named John, or multiple men named John, from 1973 all the way up until 2020, and so a lot of these newspapers we're still adding, and we continue to digitize these newspapers. So there will be a lot more to search with. But even now, I mean, Abby has been working really hard on this. And also an important note is, why may this text contain mistakes? We use a AI program, like a lot of other research databases and digitization projects do, to read the text for us, and kind of spot, oh, see, look, November's Honorable Mensch, John Dillon III. What's up, John? Cool. So that's kind of our basic overview and like a little snippet of our community newspaper. But again, this is another one of those databases that you can just get lost in. But now for going back to the bullet family papers, let's go into digital collections, and then this explore digital collections and exhibits. This will take you to our Omeka website, which will have our manuscript collections, some online exhibits that we have, including history of steamboating in the Ohio Valley, all dolled up, the handmade paper dolls of Carrie Douglas Dudley Ewan, Before the Wrecking Ball, views of lost Louisville, among others. So we have exhibits not just in our galleries in person at our facility, but we also have these Omeka exhibits. I think our newest one, let's see, this is in alphabetical order. So let's see if we can find him. Paul Gunter. This is our most recent Omeka exhibit, mostly worked on by Heather Potter and Danielle Spolenka, who are in charge of photos and digital collections, respectively. And Abby Brinney as well, who is a Common Center exhibit intern. So this is another one of our exhibits that you can just click on the side and kind of learn more about Paul Gunter, his life in Louisville, more about his studio and cabinet cards. And another thing about this online exhibit is that you can click right here and you can pull up the actual item, our digitized record of the item. So it would be cabinet card, portrait of a woman circa 1891, and then you can find subject, Louisville, Kentucky, history, pictorial works. Let's dig into the Sanders Bullet family papers, which this was a grant funded by the Kentucky Genealogical Society. Danielle Spolenka and I have been working on this, I think, since March of this year, and we have over, I think the number of items that we have are, over 200 at this point. And this specific collection, we really love to highlight this collection because it's a reworking of the standard bullet family papers that, again, are one of our largest collections, but reworking it in a way to include compassionate and empathetic language to the people that were enslaved by the Bullet family. And so, we kind of made the decision that, there's the Bullet family papers that's, been in our manuscript collection for decades. But, this isn't just about the Bullet family papers. This is also about the Sanders family, which was one of the families that were enslaved by the Bullet family. But not all of the people that were enslaved by the Bullet family were related to the Saunders family, but it was one of the families that we were able to track through the years. And, here you'll find title of the collection, the subject, Plantation Life, Southern States, Kentucky History. And, these subject headings come from the Library of Congress, which is a standard for, archival practices. We all kind of go towards the Library of Congress to keep things standardized and have a standardized vocabulary. And then a general description of the Bullet family papers, and how we are reworking them in this digitization grant into the Sanders Bullitt family papers, because you would have me mention, I mentioned earlier the Bullitt family papers and like the Oxmoor collection or the added Chenoweth papers, or what have you, but with this specific project, we aren't just talking about the Bullitt family papers. We're also talking about the Sanders family and a number of other families that were enslaved by the Bullitt family at Oxmoor and Henderson, or at the Oxmoor plantation in Jefferson County and the Cottonwood plantation in Henderson County. And this collection spans from like the 1790s all the way up until the 1930s, and this is a massive collection that we really had to handpick what we would digitize, and what we have digitized is all about the people that were enslaved at the Oxmoor plantations by the Bullitt family, and we have really changed our metadata. So you would see this collection is kind of unique from other collections that you would find in digitized or non-digitized here at the Filson, in that we have kind of reworked our metadata and changed our language in a very minute but very powerful way to be more compassionate and more empathetic to the people that were trapped in bondage during the time that these materials were made. And so let's take this specific item as an example. So other letters other titles would be like letter to William Marshall Bullitt from Mildred Chenoweth Stites, comma, February 12th, 1912. And Danielle and I, when we were working on this project, we were like, you know what? No, that's not enough. Not for this collection. When we want this collection to highlight and showcase the people that have been previously neglected in the historical record in general, not just our institution, but other historical institutions, that the history of enslaved people and the history of African American people has intentionally been erased by archival and institutions and museums and universities and the like. And part of our responsibility as historical institutions is to amend that previous erasure. And so just in tiny little changes in our language, we make sure that we mention the enslaved person's name in the title of the item. Sometimes we don't even include, depending on the item, sometimes we don't even include the name of the enslaver. We just include their name. Like, for example, there are other items that are a bill of sales, bills of sale, excuse me. And so we just say bill of sale for an enslaved person named Louisiana Taylor, or any other name dated February 12th, 1912. So it is a small, but at least in our opinion, a crucial way to bringing agency back to people who their agency was stripped away from them. And we extend this not just into our title, but into the description. So a letter from Mildred Chenoweth Stites to her cousin, William Marshall Bullitt, dated February 12th, 1912. Mildred mentions that she had a photograph of a person formerly enslaved by the Bullitt family. In other collections, including collections that we have cataloged previously, other archives and other collections, language would have been, the language for this description would have been, Mildred mentions that she had a photograph of a slave. That would be the end of the sentence. And I'm like, and us at the Filson, we're like, you know what? No, we want person first language. We want to highlight the fact that these were people. And by saying that they were slaves, by saying that they were in bondage or that they were owned by their master, is to kind of perpetuate this dehumanizing language, that they experienced in their lifetime as well. And so, we take real care in, we don't use the word owner in our description. We use instead the term enslaver. It's same thing with slave. We use enslaved person, and that's just in our opinion, it's a common courtesy, and it's a sign of respect to the people that were enslaved by and had their agency taken away during their lifetime. And this is a way of kind of shining the spotlight on them. And, especially with the Bullitt family papers, like Bullitt is the first name that pops up. Like that is what people perceive the collection to be about. And there's this entire hidden history of people that are behind the Bullitt family that did the work to be like for the Bullitt family, that they are part of that history, and they deserve to be recognized finally. And so more into this description, we put grand see this letter, but the photograph in question, you can click on this tag, let's say Louisiana Taylor, and you can pick you can see all of the different items. We have 21 items on Louisiana Taylor. And the special thing about Louisiana Taylor is that we actually know her last name. That was one of the hardest parts of researching for this collection, was that, and tagging this collection, so that way researchers can kind of formulate and kind of tie together different items and make connections that would have been extremely difficult, because these letters are all across different folders, different boxes, and different time periods. But because of this tagging system, we can really draw a timeline of these people's lives. And the thing with Louisiana Taylor is that she does have a last name, which makes these 21 total items very specific. And we know that these 21 items are for the same person because it's Louisiana Taylor. With this collection, there are other names that pop up. There's Tom, there's Sabra, there are a number of Henrys, there are a number of Tituses, and with the lack of last names, it's hard to determine if the Henry that they're talking about in like 1842 is the same Henry that they're talking about in 1863. It's hard to find that. But with Louisiana Taylor, we not only have a last name for her, but we have a photograph. And let's see if we can. So she's also mentioned the last will and testament of William C. Bullitt. Let's go into that item later. But let's find the picture of Louisiana. Let's see, because it's tagged as her. Let's see, the third page. Here she is. This was, I think, the first item that we uploaded for this collection, a photograph of Louisiana Taylor and Helen Stites, who is actually a descendant of the Bullitt family. But this is a photograph of Louisa, first and foremost. And she also went by Louisa, Louisiana, and some more information on Louisiana. Her story is actually very amazing, and the Oxmoor farm, the people that work at the Oxmoor, because it is now a historic site out in St. Matthews, Kentucky, are actually working on an exhibit about the people that were enslaved by the Bullitt family on the Oxmoor plantation. And they're thinking of and most definitely will include a story about Louisiana, because she was a she was actually a birthday present, quote unquote, for Mildred Ann Fry. Mildred Ann Fry was turning 7, and Louisiana was 5 days old. She was actually supposedly named for the Louisiana Purchase, but again, we don't know the exact dates of when she was born and when she passed away. But with the materials that we do have, we are able to paint such a wide timeline of who she was and of how she lived her life. And there's so many, with collections like these, there's so many questions that you want to ask Louisiana, and you want to ask other people that were in bondage during this time. There's so many gaps, and there's so many silences in the archive. With collections like these, and with this specific item, and Louisiana's story, you find yourself wanting to ask Louisiana so many things. And you find yourself wanting to ask Louisiana, her whole story. If you have any questions or comments, we'd love to hear from you. And we'd love to help you with your research, whatever it may be. You can email us at research@filsonhistorical.org and set up a research appointment, or ask us any reference question. You can also call 502-635-5083, or visit us from 9 to 4:30 any weekday. Thanks again for watching, and happy American Archives Month.